I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to Ground Zero. Tonight, the Pale Horse, the Pale Rider, is now making its ride. The Pale Horse represents plague and pestilence that will stalk the earth. It encompasses the possibility of germ warfare because of the word chloros, which is a greenish color, the chlorine color, which, of course, is one of the main components of chemical weapons. And so we look at this as the time of sorrows. We look at this as a time where we will see much of not only the chemical weapons being used, but we could see an atomic bomb or bacterial bombs that might easily wipe out the entire population, and this would happen in a quick amount of time. And so when we look at history and we look at what's been said from the alchemists to beyond, we know that this is going to be a major event if you're a person who believes in the apocalypse, or you believe in what's going to happen. Let's see here. I just was looking over something, and maybe let me get to the calls. Ryan is calling. I want to get to Ryan, find out what's on his mind. Hey, Ryan Gable, what's up?
Hey, Clyde. Hey, we've been talking a lot about the blue and yellow from the Super Bowl to Ukraine, and of course the trident and the Z or the S, the sword and the serpent, and Saint Michael, the archangel, and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, what happens when you combine blue and yellow together? You get the color green, which is a symbol of alchemy, and part of that alchemical process, that transformative process that I think is partly what you're discussing tonight. But blue and yellow make green, and that's the green horse, perhaps.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's like when you look at the seals, you look at the horses, you look at the riders, you got the first four seals, and then, like I said, you look at the pale horse. And if you read beyond what the Bible says, the pale horse was named chloros, which is, of course, is a greenish color. Chlorophyll is part of this. Chlorophyll, green pigments, that's where you see you see green in plants, grass.
And how are they getting this, and how are they producing it? They're producing it from the sun, and the archangel of the sun is Saint Michael, the patron saint of Kiev.
Sure. I mean, and that's what was said last night on the program. I mean, when you look at the description, the greenish yellow, which, of course, is the combination, like you say, a blue, the blue and the yellow make green, but it's a greenish yellow. It's a very kind of a strange greenish tint. It's a color of a person. It says here, in what I was reading this the other day, it's in a book called Seals. It says, it's the color of a person in sickness as contrasted with the appearance of health. For the name of the rider of the pale horse is death. Thanatos is the name of it's Chloros. The horse's name is Chloros. The rider is Thanatos. Uses the appearance of person stricken with the plague. In Homer, it was used for the paleness of the face from fear, and so on, directed descriptive fear. But it designates a yellow-green color of decay, the pallor of death, pale ashen color, the images of faces bleached because of terror. It recalls a corpse in the advanced state of corruption. That's the definition of Thanatos and the Chloros, the horse.
What do you think about them in the mainstream media with the Deltacron saying that all these refugees are going to cause outbreaks of coronavirus, and now they're claiming the numbers are going back up, but most of the refugees aren't actually going to most of those places in Europe like Italy or the UK. They're going to Poland. And Hungary.
I was going to get to that. I was going to get that later in the show, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that when you're dealing with this refugee situation, you are going to be seeing the spread of disease. And the problem here is that both Ukraine and many parts of Europe were the least vaccinated. And so they're worried that this is once again going to create another form of what they call biological warfare, where infected are going to be spreading their diseases again, and we're going to have another repeat performance of COVID.
I think they're manufacturing it again, because I think the refugees are actually going to, the UN says they're going to like Poland and Hungary and Belarus and places like that. But even so, with the biolabs there, what they call health labs with quote unquote high risk pathogens, this could also be an opportune time to intentionally release something, blame it on the Russians or not, but to experiment and see what a synthetic biological contagion can do in a refugee situation.
Well, we knew as far back as 2005 when Luger was touring these sites and was talking about how they were destroying weapons, and there were other medical sites that were dealing in plague and dealing in, well, bubonic plague, smallpox, all these different diseases. And then all of a sudden it was just shut down. And now, with Tulsi Gabbard saying what she said and what Victoria Nuland said, it's like, well, who do you believe now? And it indicates that, yes, there were, in fact, Barack Obama even, when he spoke at the Threat Assessment Summit, I think it was back in 2015 maybe, he said something to the effect that, that he toured with Lugar going to all the sites. I'll have to find that because that's a very interesting conversation that Barack Obama had at the conference. And he basically told people, he says, wherever you may go in Ukraine and Russia, there are these, in Georgia, of course, we know about the Lugar Institute there, but there are these chemical weapons plants. They're all over. Right. They're in remote areas.
A lot of this is just wordplay too, because they went from denying it to saying, yes, there are labs, but these are quote health labs. But then they don't describe why health labs have high risk pathogens that are being altered.
No matter what, we are looking at the pale rider metaphor with the idea of chloros and the green and the blue, the yellow and the blue and the green and what it all means. So I think that maybe we're onto something with a symbolic metaphor of the fourth horseman riding through and bringing death in its wake, and also the mural at the Denver airport showing that fascist dictator with a gas mask and all of the people dying at his feet, which is another symbol of the same chloros, thanatos type of metaphor.
Yeah, I mean, you were saying pestilence, famine, and war, and rumors of war. That's from the book of Matthew, I believe. They call that in the Bible the beginning of sorrows. Yeah. And I think, I don't know, I know you've talked about this before. I think a lot of this is the biblical overtones are being manufactured. It's like a synthetic Armageddon.
Yeah. It's a synthetic Armageddon. The algorithms point to this Armageddon that people, I'm noticing it, and that's why I'm observing the symbolism of this, because like I say, what we don't have in faith, we have in symbolism, and what symbolism represents and how it motivates us. That's why the letter Z is a factor on tanks. That's why the wolf angle is a factor, and the Sonnenrads are factors in the armies that are fighting on Ukraine's side. And even though they won't focus on the Sonnenrad, and because we would link that to Nazism, this is something that I think needs to be reported because, these symbols mean something, and they motivate people. And like you've already made the decision, we talked about Zeus being the Z. We talked about all these things happening the way they are. These symbols are very important, I think, to decipher in the middle of the war so we can see that, these things are definitely something that could be a synthetic Armageddon or a synthetic apocalypse. So, Ryan, thank you so much. Thank you for calling. That's a good addition to the show. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, it's obvious that something is afoot. And I always say it's hard to get ahead when something's afoot. So I think we need to think about that as well. 503-225-0860. That's 503-225-0860. The Pale Rider is riding. And we are going to point out many of the symbols and significance of this Pale Rider. 503-225-0860. We'll be back.